Right, let's get into some news. We have a load of sub-intel, a load of intel, some interesting op-ed pieces, and near the end, some booming op-ed pieces. Right, drug overdose deaths. Just some good news. In America has fallen for the first time since 1999, according to preliminary official data. Now, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention figures showed a drop of 5.1% in 2018 from the year before. And Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar said this was down to a decline in deaths linked to opioids. So that's good news. There's still a long way to go, as the research shows that an estimated 68,500 people died in 2018, but it's an improvement from 72,224 people who died in 2017. Hopefully we can get that down to near zero and get rid of those ridiculous drugs. Labour Secretary Alex Costa resigned on Friday amid intense scrutiny of his role as a US attorney a decade ago in a deal with Jerry Epstein that allowed the financier to plead guilty to several lesser offences in a sex crimes case which involved underage girls, like over 100 of them, which is what the media will not tell you. Now, Mr. Trump told reporters Friday that Acosta had decided to step aside, and he called Costa a great Labour secretary, not a good one, and a tremendous talent. This was him, not me. Trump said of his resignation decision as Acosta stood by and said, "I said to Alex, you don't have to do this." Now, back in 2008, a plea deal in Florida came under renewed scrutiny in light of Epstein's indictment charges recently on child sex trafficking in New York. And on a press conference on Wednesday, Acosta defended the role as federal prosecutor and brokering the deal for Epstein, but lawyers for alleged victims criticised his explanation. And of course, the Democrats called for him to appear at a congressional hearing in 2 weeks. Drake, 2 weeks. Well, so he said a state attorney in Palm Beach County, which is a den of iniquity in and of itself, was preparing to allow Epstein to plead to a single charge of solicitation that did not make reference to the age of the female minor. And that deal would have carried no jail time and would have required Epstein to register as a sex offender. But they wanted to see Epstein go to jail, Acosta said. And the former state attorney for Palm Beach at the time of the Epstein plea deal released a statement disputing Acosta's account following the news conference and stated, "I can emphatically state that Mr. Acosta's recollection of this matter is completely wrong," according to Barry E. Krishna, who added that Acosta would have moved forward with a 53-page indictment that his office had drafted. Barry Kirshner, born in New York, born to Jewish parents. Oops. Now, the recent focus of QAnon's Bill Maher, born in New York, born to Jewish parents, and I will keep repeating it, because it is of vital importance to recognise the problems in a high percentage way all stem in one region. It is the hell pit, and it has to be addressed. It's not saying there's not these same criminals and pedophiles elsewhere, but there seems to be a vast majority circled in the New York area. Right, quick sound check, okay? Anyone on MeWe? So I can get on with it. Good. Right, the mystery of where are we next? Federal Trade Commission voted this week to approve a roughly $5 billion settlement with Facebook that could end an investigation into its privacy practices, according to people familiar with the matter, but was not authorised to speak on record. A deal that could result in unprecedented government oversight of the company. Interesting. And the settlement adopted with the FTC's 3 Republicans supporting it and 2 Democrats against it, could end a wide-ranging probe into Facebook's mishandling of users' personal information that began more than a year ago. And the FTC $5 billion punishment against Facebook sets a new record as the largest penalty ever assessed against the tech company that broke a past promise to the government to improve its privacy practices. And the matter from here rests in the hands of the Justice Department, which typically must finalise FTC settlements, although the DOJ rarely has upended them. Right, on we go. The question on that piece is, where's the $5 billion going? Is it going to the people whose privacy they've invaded? Or is it just going to disappear into the cloud? Like, you know, where's all the money for Deutsche Bank and the mortgage theft and the LIBOR rate? Where did all that go? So it's okay, fine, and Facebook $5 billion, but you've got to recompense the people who were damaged. No one's saying where the $5 billion's going, which is a typical theme, is it not? Now, what's come up this week, and this will be the second of details, as we've got another update from Kevin Annett. But the disappearance in 1983 of a 15-year-old daughter of a Vatican employee came up again on Saturday following excavations this week at the Vatican City Cemetery. And the Vatican said it had discovered 2 sets of bones under a stone slab that will be formally opened this week. And the new discovery came after the Vatican on Thursday pried open the tombs of 2 19th century German princesses in the cemetery of the Pontifical Teutonic oh, those knights again college, in hopes of finding the remains of Emanuela Orlandi. Now, Orlandi's family has received a tip that she might be buried there, but the tombs turned out to be empty, creating yet another mystery about where the dead princesses were. Oops. Now, the Vatican allegedly has vowed to keep investigating and noted that any bones in the tombs might have been displaced during structural work carried out on both the college and the cemetery near St. Peter's Basilica back in the 1800s. Yeah, right. And more recent decades. On Saturday, Vatican spokesman Alessandro Gisotti said further searches had centred on the areas adjoining the princesses' tombs, and he said investigators had located 2 more or sets of bones under the stone slab manhole covering the inside of the Teutonic College itself. Area was sealed off and will be opened in the presence of forensic experts who no doubt are in the back pocket of the Vatican on July the 20th. Yet again, growing evidence of the crimes against the American people performed by the US military. As a report came out this week, it wasn't the only one, I didn't have time to put the other one in, to do with ticks and causing Lyme disease. With the use of firefighting foam that contains potentially dangerous chemical compounds that could have serious health consequences for the workers who handled it and also those who live nearby. And the Department of Defence had identified 401 military sites that could be contaminated with the toxic compounds known as PFAS. And the Environmental Working Group and Northeastern University have mapped at least 712 documented cases of PFAS contamination across 49 states as of this month. And that map includes contamination on military bases, along with industrial plants, commercial airports, and firefighting training sites. Now, the PFAS substances are found at high levels in a concentrate for firefighting foam called AFFF, or aqueous film forming foam. Try saying that when you're drunk. Thankfully I don't drink, so which seeped into groundwater and at times tainted the drinking water. And the Environmental Working Group estimates that more than 100 million Americans could be drinking tap water contaminated with PFAS, dubbed the forever chemical. Why? Because PFAS don't naturally break down in the environment, which explains why some water sources are still contaminated from use that was decades ago. Now, the Centre for Disease Control recognises an array of health effects linked to PFAS exposure, such as, oh dear, lowering a woman's chance of getting pregnant, issues with childhood development, and even cancer. And while there's a patchwork of regulations across state lines, there is no legally enforceable federal drinking water standard when it comes to PFAS. Oh my. As of July, as of this month, the Department of Defence has spent more than 550 million. No, the Department of Defence has spent zero. They spent the people's 550 million. Let's get it right. On PFAS investigations and responses, including providing bottled water and in-home water filtration systems, according to Heather Babb, who's a DoD spokesman. But to date, the DoD has not come up with a plan to actually clean up the PFAS contamination across the country, something that the Pentagon said would roughly cost an estimated $2 billion. Well, that can come out of the military budget. You know, $2 billion out of $987 billion is not much, is it? Where are we next? A federal appeals court ruled Donald Trump can partially defund Planned Parenthood while the abortion business lawsuit against his administration's new rules moves forward. And the Trump administration finalised an administrative rule that would partially defund the Planned Parenthood abortion business and deprive it of as much as $60 million in taxpayers' dollars. So the previous governments have been given $60 million of our money for those clowns. Eugenics. And this action adds to Mr. Trump's record of defunding Planned Parenthood. And the abortion chain receives about 50 to 60 million in what is known as Title X funds annually. But that could change now that the new rules are being implemented. And the administration changes to Title X family planning grants have angered the abortion chain Planned Parenthood, which has then prompted a lawsuit. But they provide hope for life-affirming pregnancy centres, which can now compete with the abortion giant for the federal funds. Now, Title X funds are supposed to be used to help low-income women and men receive birth control, cancer screenings and other health care services. Now, while the tax money cannot be used to pay for abortions, it indirectly funds Planned Parenthood's vast abortion business. Yet again, more financial skullduggery, and quite why the FBI or CIA hasn't gone in and audited that company. Because clearly they're using legalese and clever methods to divert the money into something that they're not supposed to do. That is a criminal offence and should be not only defunded but shut down altogether. House Babel Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Monday urged support for an up-and-coming resolution that would condemn tweets by President Trump in which he said a group of minority liberal congressmen should go back to their home countries. It's not exactly what he said. And in a letter to Democratic colleagues, Pelosi said that Trump had gone beyond his own low standards, using disgraceful language about members of Congress. Dear me. Pot and kettle. Oh dear. And that Democrats would forcefully respond to these disgusting acts. And her announcement of the resolution came as Trump doubled down on his criticism of the female lawmakers, using them of racist hatred, and suggest they apologise to the United States, Israel and him. I mean, notice that there's one of those incidents per week now where one line is twisted out of all reason, and then the media just blow it all up, and then they all start arguing. How is that helping our country? It's just not. And it's not designed to, because they've got nothing. More than 820 million people worldwide are still going hungry. I think that figure's higher, personally. But then this is a UN report, and they're bad liars. And that says reaching the target of zero hunger by 2030. Yes, zero hunger was trying to kill everyone off, that's why. Is an immense challenge. And the number of people with not enough to eat has risen for the third year in a row, and they're blaming population increases. Not really. And they said this came after a decade when real progress was made. No, it wasn't. And the UN says that the pace of progress in halving child stunting and reducing the number of low birth weight babies is too slow, which jeopardises the chance of achieving another of the Sustainable Development Goals. All this is in the hands of the UN themselves, and they are responsible for it, all of it. For every child that goes without food, the UN is 100% responsible. Why? Because they've been given vast quantities of funds out of the trust for humanitarian programs over decades. And where's the evidence of any improvement? There is none. It's got worse. And they spent all that money on lackeys and fancy committees, all paying themselves large salaries, and people wonder why I don't trust or wish to replicate the corporate business structures, where all the money generated goes to generally overfed fat bastards travelling around first class and living the high life at everyone else's expense. That's how it works. That's the corporate structure. They just gorge on everything and leave the people connected to the company with nothing. And this is the UN. And the UN should be held criminally responsible for all the famines globally, as they've had the funds to fix it and spent it on their cronies. Period. There are times when during this job, well, Kim and I wonder what the hell are we doing? And this is the latest pile of stupidity that goes beyond all reasoning. And following on the tales of eating Tide Pods, here's another one. The police are now warning about the dangers of wasping. Yes, you heard that right. Or using wasp spray to get high. Oh my God. As an alternative to meth. After several people overdosed on the insect killer in West Virginia, officers at Boone County Police Department say they've seen a rise in people using the spray to get a meth-like high. Some use the spray by itself as a meth substitute, while others combine it with the drug. Oh. And people may also use hot metal sheets to crystallize the liquid so it can be inhaled or injected. According to a report, bug spray contains active ingredients called pyrethroids, which penetrate the insect's nervous system to stun and kill them. But when humans ingest pyrethroids, who thinks? I don't know where these people come from, and they get up and go, I think I'll get high on wasp spray. You know, who comes up with it? And apparently they interfere with normal nerve signalling and causing abnormal, you're already abnormal for taking it, sensation and sometimes seizures and or paralysis. And people get off on that, seizures and paralysis. I do wonder sometimes, I really do. And oh dear, where is he? I've got to play it. Well, you're all going to die. The latest, well, you're all going to die, is yet again there's an Ebola epidemic in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which according to the World Horror Organization is now considered a global health emergency, really. And in a formal declaration that many public health where it's called long overdue. Yes, because they've got vaccines ready for it, that's why. And there's a load of vaccines sitting on the shelf because not many people's using them. Except Mr. Trump. You should buy yourself a new pair of sandals, because the last ones keep flip-flopping. So emergency declarations are issued sparingly, apparently, and reserved for outbreaks that pose a serious threat to public health and could spread to other countries. Okay, perhaps we should have an emergency declaration on the World Health Organization, and because they do pose a serious threat to public health, period. And they are meant to increase international attention, and get all the media saying we're all going to die again, and aid to help stop epidemics. Now, according to the World Horror Organization, on Monday, the Congo outbreak had affected 2,512 people and allegedly killed 1,676 of them. And the disease has defied efforts to control its spread in the northeastern part of the country, which is a conflict zone. Oh my, I wonder who's in there. UN, the IMF, under constant threat from warring militias. Now, the director of the World Horror Organization has described the outbreak as one of the world's most dangerous viruses in one of the world's most dangerous areas. Yeah, right. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that a US Navy ship today has destroyed an Iranian drone in a defensive action, which is escalating already high tensions in the oil-rich Gulf region. Why has it got to be described as oil-rich? You know, rhetorical. Now, the USS Boxer, an amphibious assault ship, took down the drone today in the Strait of Hormuz, Trump said. All very childlike to me. Well, they took our ball away, so we'll take theirs. Wrong thinking and beyond stupid. Why are we even in that region? Imagine if Iranian gunships were going up and down the east coast by Washington and Virginia or New York. So why are we going up and down there?